Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Reel McCoy. I'm Meffistoe, and this is my hetero life mate. Oh, my feelings. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, buddy.
What is the Reel McCoy? The Reel McCoy is your movie podcast, your weekly movie podcast of the week, where we send you off to watch a movie. We come back after a week and we discuss it. So if we tell you to go and watch today's movie, American History X, last week you went to watch it. This week we're going to talk about it. Next week is going to be very special because it's the start of October and we're going to do a Fright October month with all spooky stuff, all the spooky stuff. So in terms of contact, if you like to contact me and have any kind of suggestions, please go to Meffistoe at Meffistoe on Twitter, or if you prefer Instagram, it is at Meffistoe79. Go to Instagram, you can send me DMs, everything is open. Or if you want to email me, Meffistoe79@gmail.com. And before we start, please like this video, share it around, and if you can join us live, the live show is much, much better. Let's see who's in the chat. Good evening, Saf. Good evening, Dull. Good evening, James. Thank you very much for joining us. Please enjoy this episode. All right, let's hide this. And we are talking tonight. About American History X. How was it for you, sir?
We were talking a little bit backstage. Reviewed the movie twice this week. Both times, still a hard watch. I've seen it probably about 20 times overall. I watched it multiple times during film critique classes and in college and everything. It's a fantastic film, but it's a movie that is an emotional gut punch every single time you watch it. Yeah,
I mean, I've watched it before, but I haven't watched it in a very, very long time. And going back to it, there were certain moments when I was like, okay, that's a little rough. And I have a few things to say. Well, I might touch upon it when we come to specific scenes where I have troubles with it. But before we really dive into this, I want to have a little bit of a disclaimer. For those of you who maybe are interested in this podcast and haven't watched American History X, this whole podcast, we're going to discuss race relations, anti-Semitism, and a lot of issues that are very, very hard to touch upon, especially because it relates to a very different time. And I'm talking about it's very specifically after the LA riots, the famous Rodney King LA riots. So a big disclaimer for everyone: if a touchy subject really triggers you, I hate that word triggered, but if a touchy subject is really hard for you to deal with, please allow yourself to calm down and relax, because we're going to discuss some dark things. We're going to discuss very important things. We're going to discuss about race relations and a viewpoint of I'm Jewish, I'm not from America. Oh My Feelings is definitely not Jewish, from America, and we're both very, very not black. Okay, so we're going to discuss a lot about that. If you are a bit squeamish, maybe this podcast is not for you. Go check out our other podcast. Maybe it's more of a lighthearted subject. Let's dive in. American History X is all about our main protagonist, Edward Norton. His name in the movie is Derek. And Derek is a a leader of a young group of guys who are very, very, very much in the world of neo-Nazi, very much in the word of skinheads and violence, very, very much in terms of the violent aspect of this whole dogma of, we'll call it social nationalism, fascistic, but in the most brutal way.
Yeah, and we're going to get to a lot of points about indoctrination, because that is probably one of the most pervasive themes in the movie, is how not only Derek became indoctrinated, but how he indoctrinated others.
Yes. Yeah. So the movie covers it goes a little bit back and forth in terms of timeline. We see a little bit how Derek becomes what he became, and then he gets to prison, and then he comes out, and how everything kind of feels. Now, this movie is half black and white and half in color, on purpose, of course, and we might discuss it during the scenes, or we can touch about that now. Do you have any insights about why it was done this way?
Yeah, actually, the scenes of extreme racial tension that really included Derek himself as the proponent of it are really the ones that are shown in black and white. This was done this is actually stylistic choice by the director, because he and the screenwriter, because the screenwriter actually originally wrote this as a critique of how, when he was growing up around the punk scene at the time when he was growing up, and he saw all of this violence and racial tension at that time, and he couldn't understand why there was so much hate in there, and he wanted to write a story about someone who could get through the concepts of hate and how they had become this person that they didn't much care for anymore. Yeah. And they could actually see the facade, the mask slipped of all the teachings that they had been taught. And he could see that in people that he grew up around in the punk scene. When they grew out of that scene, they were completely different people, because they realized that they grew out of it. And and that's why there's that really nice juxtaposition between the two versions of how the scenes are shot.
Yeah. All right. So we've got the first scene where we kind of set the scene of why Derek is in why Derek comes out of the prison. So the first scene is this, and again, I will have images from the movie that are very, very controversial,
Sure.
but we have to show these because I'm a firm believer of when you show difficult things and you put them front street, it gives light, not light in terms of making light of, but it shines a bright light on bad things. So if something is bad, you have to talk about it, shine a big light on it, and explain it, and tell where it comes from, why is it like this, and that explains and shows more. And this movie is all, maybe, I don't know, in my point of view, this is a big spotlight on why things happen the way they are and why people fall into such a hateful dogma. All right, so first things first,
I do want to say, just on your note there too, Meph, what it also does too is it takes the power away from it.
Exactly. I totally agree. All right, so this is Derek, of course. You see the big Nazi symbol. He's totally into the neo-Nazi dogma. He gets his house gets not house, but the car gets
his truck
jacked.
is broken into.
Broken into by two black guys. No gang affiliation that we know of. Doesn't really matter. His brother wakes up. He sees the people trying to steal the car. He goes into Derek's room in the middle of coitus. Doesn't really matter. Calls him. Derek comes out, guns blazing, shoots one guy in, like, he wounds one guy that lands on his lung, and he literally kills the other guy.
Yes, the guy who's standing on his step, because he actually had a gun.
Yep,
the guy who was
exactly
on his porch. Yeah, he actually had a gun on him. The other guy was the guy who was breaking into his
truck, or his father's truck in that case. And he shoots them both, keeps shooting, and of course this scene kind of ends before he gets arrested, but it continues a bit later on.
But do you know why it does that?
To build tension?
No, because this is the version of the story that Danny, that the court was led to believe that happened. What Danny showed the scene later with the infamous bite the curb scene.
Yeah,
that's what Danny actually saw, and he's writing, when he's writing his paper later. He said, "It would have been life if I would have testified."
Yeah. Hold.
So
sorry about this. There we go. So cut to, again, that was black and white, as you can see. Cut to, I think it becomes, in terms of going from black and white into color, you can actually take the point where Derek leaves the prison, it becomes color. So we get to see this. And of course, Danny, the brother, Edward Furlong, in this, comes to school, and he gets sent to the principal's office by his Jewish teacher, Elliot Gould,
who was dating his mother, and
who was dating his mother, exactly. Who comes in, and he gave a paper on Mein Kampf, and of course, his Principal Sweeney, we all know as Cisco from Deep Space Nine, but we'll let it go. He's a great actor. He, first of all, his principal, when he talks to the teacher, the principal has a one of his core values is free speech. So the students are allowed to express themselves fully without being judged, which is, for me, is a major thing. Like, you can say, 100%. For me, you could say, and I don't have the First Amendment in my country. I believe that you can say anything you want, but you have to know the social consequences of what you say. Okay, so I totally believe in what you can say, whatever you want, and I do mean whatever you want, including this paper. All right, but I do believe that you have to realize that you're not living at an empty space. You're not living in a vacuum. There is social consequences about what you say. So,
and also throughout the film, Dr. Sweeney is by far one of the most impactful characters.
Yes.
Throughout this, he is the one who really ties the room together, ties the plot together.
He does,
because he was even telling Elliot Gould as the history teacher, "I'm not giving up on him. We're not gonna lose him. I'm not gonna give up on him." And that's what he sets the precedent to Danny, saying, "Well, you know, from here on out, I'm your history teacher. Tomorrow, you're gonna write a new paper for me."
Yeah, and the paper was a history paper.
Yeah, because he said, "Oh, so what do you want me to like? Consider this American History X." That's where the title comes from, Miss Sweeney.
Yeah.
But he said, "Well, so what do you want me to write the paper about? I want you to write the paper about your brother, about Derek."
Yeah, and that kind of it turns Danny in kind of the narrator of the movie, where he tells you bits and pieces here and there. It's sort of like Sam Elliott, where he isn't the narrator of things. He's more involved because Sam Elliott didn't really further the plot in The Big Lebowski.
Correct, yeah.
And Danny is kind of furthering the plot here because he does tell a little bit of backstories and that sort of thing. So the next scene is something that I wanted to touch upon just because it starts a loop that kind of closes up at the end of the movie where
this
Danny's in the bathroom. There's a bunch of black kids kind of bullying. I think it's like a ginger white kid.
Yep.
And when Danny steps out, he pays no attention to both the black kids or the white kid, basically. But he kind of stands his ground. And when the bullies leave, he kind of helps the other kid in, and he tells him, "Well, you have to really stand your ground, man.
You have to protect yourself.
Yeah, you have to protect yourself."
Yeah.
And that's something that Derek kind of told him. Not only Derek, but
that, and also like this is showing, and especially how it loops back up, is the inherent cycle of hatred that is in the movie, and how only the hatred or acts of perceived hatred perpetuate themselves and cause this negative reaction over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, and cut to Sweeney, we have a little bit of backstory of where he's coming from, where he sits with it's not really the police, it's more of a like law enforcement, social workers.
It's almost like a task force a little bit.
Yeah, sort of like a task force. And this scene where they have basically Derek, after his dad, we found out the dad got killed while saving other people in a fire by I think it's a black guy, or they don't know. They said
it was a member of the Crips.
Member of the Crips. So it's even more. It's like a gang related.
It was a gang,
and he spews a bunch of. That's where I have problems with, because he tangles together a lot of like conservative gripes. I wouldn't say like far right leaning stuff. Well, definitely far right leaning stuff, but he jumbles together both real conservative concerns with heinous racial shit.
But you have to
together.
The only thing is you can sympathize with them at the same time, where it's like you're taking it and you're misguiding your anger, and that's really the whole tragedy of Derek Vineyard, the character, is all of this hatred and all of this rage, and how he basically ruined his entire life and got his brother killed at the end was because of misplaced anger and rage.
Yeah.
But you have to, because he's a teenager. His father just got killed. He's already heard racist rhetoric before, so it's easy for him to fall into that trap where he can get indoctrinated by it, where he can just believe and suck himself into believing it because, hey, if it weren't for them, my dad would still be alive.
Yeah, exactly. So it kind of perpetuates the whole
itself. Yep.
Yeah, the whole thing. So we get a little bit, it's very snippet while Sweeney is talking. We get to see a little bit more of, we get we'll call it the next brick in the wall that's going to shatter soon, which is this. Danny goes into the court, the basketball court. I think this is the close to the Venice Pier, right?
Yeah, they're in Venice Beach. Yeah,
There's Venice Beach. There, it's very close to the pier, so they have a shot of the pier, but they're not at the pier itself. They're at the ball courts that are at the beach itself, right?
It's the boardwalk. Yeah.
So basically, we see Danny not really confronting, but we can see another part of Danny and the same boy from the school. They're not talking, they're just eyeballing each other. And the kid has, I think, either a brother or a friend that is from the crypts, right? And he's like, is that the guy we're talking about, you told me about in school? And that's like, yeah. And they have some sort of a conversation. We don't really need, we get a little bit of, if you can tell, it has the subtitles from the DVD. And I don't think what they actually said was really in the subtitles, because it's like, oh, we're okay, we're all right. Is that the guy? You can't really tell. There's always like loud voices and people playing basketball, all that stuff. So,
okay,
but we know what they're talking about.
Yeah,
we kind of know, at least for now. And it, of course, harkens back to this. This is basically Danny's memory of. Oh, it's really. I'll show a better. I'll show a better. So Danny getting reminded of the day of his brother sitting around in the court while he sees his friends getting beat by, I think it was a mixed group, but they come to Dan. His big friend, I can't remember his name. Seth. He played by Ethan Suplee back when he was big, not what now where he's like half the size.
I'd basically say small little caveat too. They had to put on fake white power ink.
Yeah.
For all of the actors there.
Of course.
Ethan Suplee said that it was the most uncomfortable situation I've ever had in my entire life. One time he went to a convenience store after shooting was done for the day and forgot to take one of them off, and someone confronted him about the tattoos.
Yeah, it's like I said, this is like 1998. This is after basically 6 years of Clinton, where a lot of the shit that was going down in the 70s and 80s was already. I had a feeling, at least for me, where I can see the American culture from afar, but I do consume it a lot. In 1998, this whole racial tension thing felt like it was coming to a close. When I grew up, this was like my teenage years. I didn't see a lot of Black people around me. We had a few that were coming from Ethiopia, so we had a few Black. It's not really Black people, but African people around. It never occurred to me to treat them any different. So when I see in movies, and get culture and get like news from America, it's like this whole racial thing is not coming to an end, but it's being normalized, or at least that's why I grew up with not seeing any colors. Back then we had, I don't know if you've seen this, the colors of Benetton. Have you seen that? Those ads?
United Nations of Benetton.
It's very much like we don't see any. It's trying to, let's say, re-educate people into not seeing race, and that's what I grew up with: not seeing race, seeing people.
Well, because this is also, you have to mention, like, just not even in the States. I mean, look at in South Africa, apartheid had just ended.
Yeah, as well. It was a big, like, oh, we're coming out of, I'm not saying the dark ages, but it's time to let racial tensions go. that was the whole, at least for me, the whole vibe of the 90s in terms of race relations. It's like we're ending this. We're ending
Well, I mean,
this with education, with accepting the other, with talking to other people as equals.
yeah, I will say that yes, it did. Obviously, it got much better in the 90s than it had been in previous decades or centuries, but there were still a lot of pervasive problems, and there are still today that.
Of course there is, and there always will be. There
Yeah.
always will be. Now, I want to have a shot because it's gentle. I just don't want to put too many hate symbols on. For
No,
me,
I understand. I know.
For me,
I know.
is
Yeah.
very difficult. So we have this guy who did this guy on screen was the guy who did the bet with Seth, and Seth couldn't cover it, so he came to Derek, and Derek was like, "Fuck it, let's do this." He goes on the court. And he says, "Well, I'll cover the spread. Let's play white guys against black guys," and that's Derek talking. Those guys who were playing right there, I don't think they cared because they had a mixed team, right?
Yeah.
So Derek comes in, we'll play white guys against black guys, and we're not going to play for money. We're going to play for this court, right? That's the stakes. Now, why did I put this particular guy? This is one of the guys who later on went to Derek's place and robbed his car.
Yep, this is the one who actually broke into his car, and this is the one who he actually.
This is the one who got.
This is the
curb stomped.
Yeah,
the curb stomp guy. Anything to add to that?
But I would say even
the basketball scene.
The scene we're gonna go to, the next black and white scene coming up, with about the grocer, which by the way is really uncomfortable to watch still. But it shows Derek as not only as obviously he's an athletic guy, but he's also outrageously charismatic, and he has all of these people behind him already.
Yeah. The first thing before we get to the grocery scene, which is super disturbing, we get this very short, kind of not really short, but
with Seth,
with Seth. Seth comes in with music that is like white power music.
And just so you know, that is an actual song.
I know that's an actual song.
Which
sadly I know
that's just
quite a few. Do you remember? Do you know who Louis Theroux is? He's a UK documentarist. He goes deep into places where he morally and politically objects to those places to find out how they tick. So he went to, I think it was the Southern Baptist Church people, to find out about white power. And his whole documentary is revolting.
He reminds me of another, it's a little bit more lighthearted, but it's still really, really uncomfortable to watch. There's a comedian who did a show for Vice called was it the Hate You Know, where he was half Jewish, he's African American, and his mom, I believe, was part Hispanic or something like of that nature.
So he's the multicolored American.
Yeah, but he went down. He was from England originally too, so he had a thick British accent. So, but he interviewed people from the KKK, from multiple white supremacist groups. He went. He even went to Black Power meetings, and it was. Okay. It's a really interesting show to watch because yes, he's still a comedian, so he does a little bit of stand-up in between talking about what's going on during the show, and he does put a little bit of a lighter spin on it. But there are some episodes where he actually had things mic'd up in the background where he had left the scene and people would just start talking how they would normally have their conversation about this kind of person, and wow.
Yeah.
It's rough to listen to.
We have to realize something. white power and white supremacist groups, I think in the United States, it's around 10,000 people, give or take. It used to be way more.
Way bigger, yes, yeah.
Way
Most
more.
definitely, yes, yeah. That is
And
very
the
true.
more, and that's why I'm a big proponent of shining a big fucking light on this thing, because the more light you shine, the more you let those people talk, it reveals who they are. You know who they are, and you know who to really take care of. And it's not like this vague, oh, white supremacy is out there, don't go. It's like, I hate it when it's vague. That's why it's very, very important to let these people talk. To let these people talk. Let them talk. Let them spew their hate. Now we get Seth. I'm gonna go through this scene because I want to get to that grocery scene, because it really shines a light on who Derek really was before he went to prison.
Correct, yeah.
The Seth comes in, guns blazing, talking nonsense, talking shit. We know exactly who Seth is. At some point, Derek picks up the entire family and brings them up to the mother's room so he can talk to them without Seth being around, agitating everybody, agitating Danny, agitating Derek, all that stuff. And Derek kind of,
his sister especially.
Yeah, sister, where she's labeled as a liberal, but I don't think she's like super out there. She's like a normal person.
No,
like,
that's what it is. That's the thing, though. She's not following their rhetoric or their ideologies, so she is obviously the other. So you throw and you lambast them with the whatever thing you can to condemn them as the other. That's
exactly, that's how cults work, to make sure their followers stay around. Everybody else is the other. That's the scary monster out there. And that's why I don't like vague, like, oh, these are out there. These are out there. Don't go on the streets because it's a menace, blah, 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 whatever. So we get Seth coming in, being a disgustoid in human form. And Derek, at the end of it, he sends, Derek takes Seth, and I think he leaves with Seth.
Yeah,
right?
They both
kind of leave.
Yeah.
And Derek tells Danny to not go to the party because they're throwing a party for Derek's release over at the white supremacist place.
Cameron's compound.
Cameron's house.
Stacey Keach, side note, it's that he doesn't get enough credit in this movie either. He plays a perfect scumbag in this movie.
Oh yeah. So I don't want to show too much violent stuff, but let's, you know what? Fuck it. People need to see this. People need to see this movie. And
I was just gonna say, before this scene, there is the conversation, well, the almost speech that Derek gives outside of the store.
Yeah.
That shows how powerful someone who is indoctrinated, who is charismatic and intelligent, can be, to bring in more people to follow that same rhetoric.
And this is exactly why Cameron
put everything on Derek.
Put everything on Derek, and put him as the front man, as the soldier, as the general, although the real general stays behind and being in the shadows. And this is why exactly this kind of emphasized the point that I wanted to make, where you need to put a light on these people, let them talk, let them say what they have to say, because if Cameron would have said it, this whole, let's call it a terrorist cell, wouldn't have existed, because because Cameron would have been ostracized from society because of what he says. Okay, so this is part outside of the grocery shop, where Derek kind of gives a pep talk to the troops, I would say, which is disgusting, but this is what he does. He kind of gets the crowd worked up and just sends them off to do heinous shit. Like, no, I can't show that.
I would say
You know what? Fuck that. They kick the, I think it was a Latino worker.
Well, they
kick him in the stomach, and
they
this
brutalized the Korean owner.
Yeah,
they brutalized several of the people that were they were either hit. There some that I'm not sure if they were Mexican, but they were definitely Hispanic.
Yeah.
But one man in the back goes in the back and he actually gets a gun, but Derek stops him.
Yeah.
But in the interim, they're doing this most heinous thing to this Hispanic woman who is just a cash. She's just a cashier.
Yeah, I'm not sure if she's Hispanic, but she's definitely has a darker complexion. So they wash her with milk to try and get her color off, and that is terrible thing.
And the first time I watched this movie, I was utterly horrified by this scene, but I was actually somewhat relieved because I thought there was going to be a scene of sexual assault with the way that things were going.
Yeah, I thought
it really looked like it was going to go there, and I'm so glad it did not. Still, everything that happened is.
Do you know anything about the Nazi doctrine?
Like sort of
in depth. No, in depth.
No, not in depth. I haven't read my Kampf or anything.
It is, and I'm sorry to say that it is unhygienic. According to the doctrine, it is unhygienic for an Aryan person to have sexual relations with anyone who is not Aryan.
Yeah.
So it could be Black, Hispanic, Asian, but it can also be Slav. The Slavs were just as for the Aryan Germans, they were considered just as bad as.
Would that also be
Jewish.
Catholics as well too?
Nope.
Okay, because I thought like you had to be Protestant as well, or.
You have to realize the origins of the Nazi doctrine comes from after World War I, where remember the Slavs, not really, but the Slavs killed Franz Ferdinand, which was Austrian, and it was basically Austria and Germany together with Hungary as well. It's all World War I type of deal, but because they were considered the instigators of the fall of Germany in terms of economic fall, that's they got blamed. So since then, Slavs and everybody else who is not Aryan is the enemy. So we get to this scene. What a lovely scene is this, where we see Derek.
Yeah.
We see Derek spews more of his doctrine to the guy who is dating his mother, which is a Jewish teacher in his high school.
Which, oddly enough, given how into and basically essentially brainwashed Derek is at this point, the fact that he would even sit down and have a meal with him was a kind of a break in the character. Granted, it's needed for the scene.
Yeah.
But you would think that he would be like, no, get out of my house. Get out of my house now. He does later after the tensions rise.
Yeah.
And, he starts actually like, again, reiterating and just basically following deeper and deeper into that rhetoric trap. But I just, them even having that meal together speaks volumes about the character of Derek and also Elliot Gould's character to sit there and actually sort of take it and have that conversation about Rodney King, which is the real point that they were really having during that entire conversation. And that the
Yeah.
rhetoric that they have, that dialogue, especially everything that Derek is saying, is a lot of what people believed, especially who are on the far right, believed about the Rodney King case.
And you know what struck me, and I know it's my own perspective, and I'm pretty sure you don't see it that way, but I see it as well. A lot of what Derek said, you could hear from not Nazi people, not far right people, but even centralists and right-leaning people. Some of his speech, not the real bad shit, but some of his speech or some of his rhetoric at the beginning of the conversation, if you would have replaced Rodney King with George Floyd, you would have heard the same shit from both sides of the aisle.
Yeah.
And
which
it's very frightening. And that's when I texted you this week and I told you this is fucking tough to watch. That is what was tough for me, because I've heard a lot of people making very good sense, saying what Derek said before it got escalated.
Yeah.
It was talking about immigrants stealing poor people's jobs. It's a lot of, it's not even neoconservative, but like conservative talking points, even centric talking points, not from the view of, oh, those dirty immigrants, is like, we want to keep our borders because we're kind of hurting here, us poor people. And I've heard this on the left side in my country as well, not right, left. It's, we have enough social problems without us taking care of other people that are coming in. And we're not even talking about blacks or any sort of thing. We're talking about workers that are coming into this country to help with taking care of our old and sick. If they need 24-hour care, most people don't want to do this. Most people who are born here don't want to do this, don't want to take care of their own parents. So they have to pay workers that are coming from the Philippines, from India, like people, and those people get treated very, very poorly in my country, because I wouldn't want to call my country an ethno state, but it is a very ethno state. It is founded on the principle of it's a home for the Jewish people. So when foreigners, I don't mean, I'm not going into the whole Palestinian Israeli thing.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the inside the borders of what is recognized by the UN and everything. We have a lot of issues with foreigners who come in here, get paid well to take care of our old and sick. And when our old and sick are dead, they are treated like a pariah. And it's saddening to me, because as Jewish people, we should have compassion. But overall, I can see the other side where, it's, we also have unemployed and very destitute people that can do this job. The problem is those destitute people that are from this country, citizens, Jewish, all in all, they don't want to do this job as well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of we have to treat people.
It's a catch-22.
It's a catch-22. And it's so saddening to me, because I do feel there's middle grounds, but the middle grounds is kind of negating the whole Jewish ethno state. I hate using the word ethno state, but it is. I'm sorry, it is.
But also to your point during that whole
I went off
thing.
on a tangent.
No. I wanted you to, because you said you wanted things to talk about, and please, I don't want to interrupt you on that. I just wanted to let you.
That's you have to understand my state of mind when I'm watching this. I hate Derek before prison. I hate that doctrine so much. I was, as a kid, at the time, look, I was in Poland in 1995 or 6, so 3 years before this movie came out. I was in Auschwitz. I was in Majdanek. I was in Treblinka, whatever's left of it, but I was there. Nobody can tell me that it is fake.
Fake. Yeah.
Nobody can tell me it's fucking fake.
Yeah.
Like, I've heard stories. You hear a lot of stories when you grow up here, but when you fucking have it in your fucking face, it's totally different. So my viewing on this, you don't understand how much some of this movie disgusts me. Same as I watch Schindler's List or any other Holocaust related or adjacent movie. I can still appreciate this movie for shining a light upon the subject. This is what I like about this movie, even though I don't like this movie. Not anymore. Not at this age. I used to love this movie.
The only thing I wanted to add during the dinner scene, and we can move on from it, is that, as you mentioned, the same kind of talking points and the same kind of rhetoric on both sides during the Rodney King arguments. You mentioned that that's being brought up during everything that happened with George Floyd.
Exactly.
And that is, as we mentioned way before, is that this is essentially like, it's great that we came so far in the starting in the late 20th century and everything, but still there are these pervasive issues that still exist. And even from 20 plus years later, we still haven't let that stuff go. And those are issues that I don't think will ever go away, unfortunately. These are systemic problems that exist and are almost inherent in human nature to try to vilify and alienate the other. And I don't think that, obviously, it would be so great if racism would stop tomorrow, but I don't think that'll ever happen, ever. It's just something that's
so either.
Inherent in human nature.
The only issue we have is, and this is for me from my angle, and this is for you guys out there in the US, because this is, a lot of this stuff comes from, and again, a lot of the culture I take in, and of course you take in because that's your culture. The whole point about trying to negate racism or trying to, because there will always be people that do the neo-Nazi thing because it's a cult, and cults do draw a specific kind of person. I had this scene up when you were talking. This is when Murray comes out and he talks to the mother, and he tells her, look, he is too far gone. And I cannot be with you because every time I show up at the door, I'm faced with people who killed my mother, my grandfather, or it's the same dogma, the same teachings that got my family killed way back when. And I cannot live with it.
And there's also, just given what he just experienced, that was just a dinner that went slightly wrong.
Yeah.
What if there was a situation where Derek actually was extremely angry for another reason? He obviously could fear for his very life at that point. That is, at a certain point, you have to take, there's the greater realm of self-preservation, and it has to be maintained.
Yeah. All right. I know it seems like it doesn't fit for this movie.
I think we need a breather because we're going.
we have
And
to
we're
take
also
a breather.
going to the
So,
prison stuff. So yeah,
Yes.
let's go into the
So-
prison stuff. So yeah,
Yes.
let's take a
Let's
take
have a
good
breather. Let's have a little bit of crowd interaction. You know what we're talking about. You know what's coming. It is our poster quiz of the evening. Our first segment of the night is, we'll call it a poster quiz. What do we do in our poster quiz? If you haven't seen it, if you haven't been there, if you haven't been here, I put up a poster. It has its text right off, clear off, and you out there as a crowd and Mr. Oh My Feelings will guess which movie this is. I promise I made this time around real easy because we need a little bit of a breather, but then we're jumping right back in.
Need some
into
levity.
the heart of the darkness. Let me set this up, and there.
Batman Forever.
Batman Forever, the Val Kilmer Batman.
Yes. Battlefield Earth.
Battlefield Earth is
Oh,
correct.
it was so bad. Is that Congo?
Very tough. Congo, that is correct, sir.
I haven't the slightest fucking idea.
You want me to punch in?
No, you guys. No, it's not Galaxy
Right,
Quest. So
it's up to you guys out there in the chat. All right, so we've got William Hurt. We've got
that's a very young Heather Graham.
That's a very young Heather Graham.
Is that Gary Oldman?
Gary Oldman and
Is that Matt LeBlanc?
Matt LeBlanc. And
Oh, is that the
this one is Lacey.
That was the
Charvet.
remake of the. Is that the remake of Lost in Space?
Lost in Space.
Once I saw Matt LeBlanc, I'm like, gotcha.
Terrible movie. Terrible movie.
Oh.
Want me to punch in?
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the actors' faces. All right, so
that's Mira Sorvino?
Mira Sorvino, and that's the black guy from Alien 3. It's a really good actor. I fucking love him.
Scroll up. It's that Species.
It's not Species.
Nope, you got me.
Danger, Will Robinson. That's the last one. This is Mimic.
Okay.
It's a sci-fi.
It was like Species.
It was like Species.
Firefly.
Not yes and no.
No, it was their ship. What the hell was the name of their ship? Oh no.
Let's go, chat. It's up to you guys.
All my friends who love Joss Whedon are gonna hate me right now.
You want me to punch in? You don't
No,
really
no.
need
I
to,
know all
but
the actors. I just can't remember what the name of it.
It's not Firefly.
Firefly. No,
Firefly
it's
is the series.
series. It's the name of their ship. But
Come on.
I am drawing a blank. Serenity.
Serenity.
Sap got it.
Serenity now. No. Insanity later.
Star Trek. I don't fucking know because I haven't watched any of them.
All right, chat. Come on. This one is Star Trek. We'll punch in just so you'll see the faces.
It's when Patrick Stewart became the Borg for like the 20th time or something.
No. First Contact. Thank you, James.
Way to go, James. Now, that's Superman 3?
That is Superman 3, baby. We'll punch in just for fun. That's Richard Pryor.
I know.
Richard Pryor was actually in a Superman movie. Want me to punch in?
Time Machine.
The Time Machine. This is Guy Pearce.
Yeah.
This is what's her face? She was an English pop star, but after this movie, Not anymore.
Nope. Wild Wild West.
Wild Wild West, and I found one with the big
ass spider.
mechanical spider. It is John Peters, by the way. Don't stay up too late. You have work tomorrow. Words of wisdom by Mrs. Meff. She went to bed.
Yes.
Yes. Pecan pie. God damn it. We've got pecan pie. Yes, I'm not allowed to eat any because I'll have gastric reflux. And I'm a gremlin. All right, so it literally jumps from this into, to me, this one is the hardest scene I've ever seen in a movie, ever.
Yeah.
I'm going to show
it is up
just this part. The curb stomp. This one is, when I saw it the first time, it was like I felt the back of my neck hurt when Derek off camera, not really off camera, but when he stomped this guy into the ground. And I was like, after he got caught and knew he only got basically 3 years, I'm like, how the hell is a guy with big fucking Nazi tattoos is going to get 3 years for basically killing 2 people? Tell me.
Well, because it was not considered murder at that point, because the first one, technically there's stand your ground laws in the States because it was on their property. The other one did have a firearm on him. The other one, that's why he only got voluntary manslaughter and not a murder charge.
Yeah.
That's why when Danny was writing in his essay,
in his paper. Yeah.
That's why he wrote in there. He wrote he would have gotten life if I testified, and then deleted that line.
Why didn't he testify? Because he was out there. The cops did see him, and we didn't get the trial as well. It's like,
I don't know.
It's like don't show, don't tell, or tell, or it. I just didn't understand why he got such a light sentence. I mean, I think it's just to further the story and make sure Danny's still in high school while Derek comes out. I'm guessing that's how they wrote the script. But there's no real explanation why.
Well, but and a lot of the same thing with the stand your ground law. The first person that he did shoot that had the gun would technically be almost considered in self-defense. So
yeah, I would imagine that even in California, even in the 90s, a very blue state, still had laws when it comes to defending your home, especially when it's armed robbery and all that stuff. It's not like a burglar comes in and he just stole your car. Quite a different story when it comes to that. And Derek didn't resist, so that
no, he didn't resist arrest or anything. And also the reason why I think he got voluntary instead of murder was that, like, had he just shot the other person and not done the curb stomp, I think he would have actually just straight up gotten away with it.
So he might have just gotten time for the curb stomp.
That's the actual manslaughter charge.
I think that's the sentiment. That's basically oh, never mind. It's a bit silly to get into it. So we go to the party. And this is where we realize, if you haven't realized up to this point, this is where we realize that something is definitely changed with Derek.
Yes.
He comes out. I'm going to let most of the party go. Like we said, he told Danny not to come. Danny doesn't listen because these are his new friends. So he's there. Mm-hmm. Derek comes in and he talks to Cameron. This is Cameron.
The
Phenomenal
only
job
other
by is it
Stacy
Michael
Keach.
Stacy
Stacy
Keach.
Keach.
Stacy
I was
Keach.
gonna say before this though, the only important bit about the party scene is just showing how even like Danny's friends showing up after him, like, "Oh, you're a god, man."
Yeah.
The
But
idolization that he has already, and then his conversation with his now immediate ex-girlfriend.
yes.
Say like,
That
"Oh, like
comes
we should go.
after,
We should
basically
go."
after this. Cuz no, he talks to her outside and it kind
Yeah,
of throws her off,
yeah.
and after he walks out she was like, he's the other,
He's the
right?
other,
So
and
he
then
comes
he
in,
has the conversation with Cameron, and
he has the
and it's showing
he's
too, like he calls out Cameron for all of his bullshit. He
yeah.
about what
Eh,
he actually is and how he's a coward, and even then, Cameron is trying to set him up, saying, "Hey, I'm glad you got over, the skinhead thing."
yeah, you're more, he tells him, you're more like me now in
Yeah,
terms of,
yeah.
oh, you're you know how things work, you know how we need to influence the young to become
Mhm.
the warriors, the ones that actually do the violence, and that kind of gives us the real power to work in the shadows and like work everything out. And this is why this is a very important point, because this is how a lot of cults work. Any cult,
Mhm.
any dogma, anything, there's a main guy or several main guys. That is the back. But in the front, you have the more extreme guys, the more violent guys, the ones that are willing to even sacrifice themselves, depending on which, let's say it's compare Al Qaeda to Muslims. Most Muslims are very peaceful, but Al Qaeda is the extreme version of
Mhm.
it's dogmatic, it's cult like. There's leaders that
Well,
are in the hiding, but there's also front generals that are in the new. You see them in the news, you see them everywhere, and those are
well, I mean, you could
basically the
even look at it,
fall
even
guys.
even the smaller bits, like everything that happened in Jonestown,
Jonestown is the same deal. It's all about
everything that happened in Waco.
exactly. It's the small. There's a small group of, or just one guy who is in the shadows
And
working out everything, but there's also the front soldiers that are
just
willing to do
and the
anything.
I would say that the biggest, the most apropos analogy that to fit your concept there is everything with Charles Manson.
Everything was Charles Manson. Everything. If you know what, what's the sex cult that got busted with Allison Mack? It
Oh
was
no, I forgot about that. Yeah, it was the
there
Hollywood
was a, I
kind
don't
of
remember
ring.
what the name of it exactly. I'm gonna turn it into the why the sex cult and not this, because I want to go into uh I don't want to say more peaceful, but it was not going out and terrorizing people. It's bringing people for basically being a sex slave and being branded. But there was always a guy at the back who was the leader of the cult,
Yep,
and the front people were people like Allison Mack,
so
who
Mac.
actually
Yeah,
brought people in and influenced them and got them inside the cult. That's what I'm
correct.
talking about.
Yep,
Okay, that's the dynamic.
yep.
And Cameron is very sinister,
Oh
very
yes.
sinister. He knows that the violence part is frivolous. It's it's pawns in a chess game. That's
And
how
what
he
it
operates.
it is, it's a necessary evil, but it's one that does not further his goals. That's what it
Exactly.
really boils down to. Yeah.
Which is absolutely scary, because those people are the ones who spew the hate, who they don't turn people outside. They don't turn people in the way that Derek did in the grocery in the outside the grocery shop.
Mhm.
They turn people inside the home, get into their head, knowing what makes them tick, and pressing and literally squeezing on their weaknesses, on their preying on their weaknesses, and dealing with their misdirected hate, I would call it.
Mhm.
Derek had misdirected hate that comes from core values. We'll see that in further scenes, right? But he preyed upon the weakness, and the weakness is, he was already inclined to do some of these things, but because his dad was killed by an African American, that's where you press. That's where you
Correct.
lean
Yeah.
into it. And that
Exactly.
is super dark, super sinister. And one of my biggest gripes when it comes to real white power people, they're the real sinister ones work in the shadows, and you have to call them out.
What it is, it's pernicious manipulation. That's what it is.
And of course, they have a fight. I want to get to. We'll do this. So he takes Danny away. There's an altercation where he gets
basically he gets called out by Seth, and then also
his
girlfriend calls him
as
out,
well.
and yeah,
they literally called Derek the N-word.
Yes,
because that's the other
repeatedly,
yeah,
repeatedly.
And when they go out and they have their conversation, that's where we find out about Derek's life in prison. This is where we see what was going on behind the bars. Basically, we see the turn. Let's see. Okay. So Derek's in the prison, and it's basically his first day. And he says, well, I know I'll need to be protected, or I'll need to have...
I'm gonna get killed, yeah.
I need friends up in here, or otherwise I'm gonna get killed. So I'll put up the white flag and see who responds. And of course, who responds? The skinheads inside the joint. Because inside the joint, you have the white power people, the blacks, the Asians, and Hispanics. That's how it works. At least that's to my knowledge. I've seen enough. What was the name of that show? It was on National Geographic. It was dealing with real people on the inside on maximum security. Sorry,
is that just
maximum security prisons? It could be locked up, but
yeah.
If you ever seen the show Oz,
I was gonna say, like, if you want to see a dramatic interpretation of it, watch the show Oz.
The dramatic interpretation of what this is Oz. The white people are either affiliated with the white power, or they're pretty much by themselves. We've got the Latin group, the Asian group, and the black group that is divided into the Muslim and non-Muslims. But they're all dealing with each other.
Yeah,
they're all dealing. Yeah,
that's what really throws. We're gonna be able to go to skip a lot of it, because Derek. What throws Derek off is he sees one of his fellow white supremacists basically dealing drugs with the Hispanic gang on the yard.
This is the first scene where this is after he shows his big fucking tattoo, right? And he gets like the acknowledgement of the white power group that is sitting on the side, but nobody approaches him there. When he goes to the food, that's where they reel him in and put him out. Like, I don't know if you noticed, but this dude does not look white to me, but we'll let that.
And the guy actually the guy to his side, he's actually an Italian American actor.
Yeah, but it's kind of weird, but it's we'll let it slide.
It is what it is. It's a film.
And of course, because it's a movie and because we're in here, Derek is assigned to the laundry, and who teaches him how to do the laundry. But Mr. I forgot his name. God damn it! I
His
put it
name is
aside.
Lamont, and he's like
Lamont.
he's
Lamont.
the bright side of this movie. His name's Guy Torry. His
Guy
his
Torry.
older brother is actually a really famous comedian. So,
Okay.
which makes sense with his timing and everything, especially some of the
I
later
know.
scenes. Like you could say he's got someone in his family, or he was a stand-up comic, or he's done stand-up comedy before, because he's got some really, the way his pacing and cadence when he tells a joke, even from the scripting.
My only
issue,
with him is he says "I" a lot. It kind of drove me crazy. I don't know why. He's like, he plays so perfectly. He's so good at what he's supposed to do. But the one thing drove me crazy. I don't know why. That word drove me fucking crazy.
It was part of the vernacular at the time.
I know. Like, why can't I have something that ticks me off in a certain way and not in
it's gonna be
ways?
okay.
I mean, he's so fucking good. He explains everything to you as an audience, but also to Derek. Did you notice that up to a certain point, Derek is not talking to him at all?
Yeah.
He's not talking to him. He's not arguing with him. He's nodding. That's it. And Lamont keeps talking and talking and talking. But Lamont figured out Derek before Derek figured out himself.
That's true.
He was, I don't know if it's smart, but we'll call it intuitive enough, or he seemed like he figured out Derek as soon as Derek looked him in the eyes. Mm-hmm. That's where I came from. And yeah, we'll see this. So the continuation of the story is Derek watches one of his buddies go out and deal with, I think it was the Hispanics.
Yep.
Yeah. He deals with the Hispanics, and he was like, why is he doing this? And this dude, the lead, we'll call him the leader. He's like,
it's prison politics.
This is
what you got to do to be.
You have to survive. In order to survive, there's not any of the other bullshit from the outside. This is the inside, dude. This is not like, we're not on the outside.
And Derek's immediately, well, that's bullshit. And no, he shouldn't be doing that. And what does the guy say? Like, okay, we're getting really tired of your preaching bullshit. Yeah. And that was kind of the big warning to him, like, you need to shut the fuck up, because this is how things work around here, and don't you mess with things. Otherwise, something bad is going to happen to you, and something does.
It also is we'll call it the first lesson for Derek to understand how much he was led astray by Cameron. Yeah. It's like the first lesson before he even talks to Sweeney, before he even talks to anybody. He is like the first lesson, but he's not really there, because the only way he's going to learn is later on, because he's getting lessons about what is the real world by Lamont, but also from this, at least to that's how I see it. No. We get also a visit from his mom.
Okay, I was gonna say I definitely believe the scene in his mother is. Yeah, and then showing again how much Danny is idolizing him, and how much he's taking him to Cameron and everything. And she's saying, "Can you please just make it stop? Like, tell Danny to stop doing this." And Derek's immediate response is, "I can't control him. There's nothing I can do at this point." That's what he's telling her. But which he clearly could have, but he was still indoctrinated at that point. Like, he hadn't woken up yet.
Yeah,
basically.
Exactly. So,
and this is kind of the first break that Lamont has with him is after this, because he's pissed off, and he's basically he's throwing around the sheets, and he's like, "Listen, man, you're not going to accomplish anything. You're going to end up just giving yourself a heart attack. You're giving me a heart attack." He's like, "I don't know why you hate sheets. The only kind of sheets I hate is when he goes over and pulls up a a sheet because I hate. I
Yeah.
don't know why I hate them. I just hate them. I don't even know what they are, but I hate them.
And you know why he hates them? Because it's a monotonous job that
Yeah.
it's not only the color of the sheets and the metaphor of what the color of the sheets mean,
Oh yeah, well, because he was
but
making fun of
also
the KKK.
that's the
and that was-
metaphor, but he's
yeah,
also making fun of an actual job if
yeah,
they were on the outside and they were doing a monotonous job that keeps going and going and going.
Yeah.
It's called, I think it's called the US Postal Service syndrome, because they do the same job over and
Okay.
over and over again and they
Yeah.
go crazy, or at least it used to be.
Oh yeah, going postal.
Going
Yeah.
postal. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so at a certain point, Derek is like, I've had enough of this. You are betraying the white power. He doesn't say it, but he's like, you're
Okay, yeah.
betraying what we were taught.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not into this.
And as he
So
walks away, he gives him the salute.
Yeah,
which
the
he
guy
didn't
who was
start
dealing
off.
with the Hispanics was
Yeah.
like, does the Zig
Vineyard.
Heil,
Yeah.
does the Zig Heil, and Derek just walks away. And to be fair, I was never in the prison. I'm definitely going to do my absolute best not to go into prisons, not in the US and not anywhere. I know for a fact that if you have a group and you turn on that group, literally turn back on your group, you are a dead man.
Dead. You're dead.
You're a dead man. Yeah. And Derek knows it. And Derek is totally not oblivious to what is happening. He said, I'm alone here. I'm expecting every day to get killed.
Yeah, because he was talking to Lamont and he goes, why would you do that? You dissed all of them in front of everybody here.
Yeah.
And now it's just like, he goes, oh no, you don't have to worry about the Peckerwoods, the white supremacists. You got to worry about the brothers now, because the Peckerwoods were keeping your ass alive.
Yeah.
They were keeping everybody else away from you.
The affiliation you had with a group keeps everybody else away from you. Now it's open season, and Derek is looking out for the next guy to shank him. He says, in the shower, in the courtyard, in the thing, I'm just expecting somebody to shank me or kill me. He didn't expect the guys who he turned his back on. And that kind of shook. That's the second shock, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've got Lamont here basically getting
joking
Derek
about that
out of his shell when he talks about the girlfriends, the women, the sex, and all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next,
and that's the real seeds of their friendship. That's when it really starts to grow, and even that change in Derek is really starting.
Yeah,
at that point.
And we get to this scene with both of them as well, where it starts off with
they're joking. They're joking about basketball.
Lamont is a Laker fan, and Derek is a Boston Celtics fan. And of course, if you grew up during the 80s or know about the 80s, the big rivalry between the Boston Celtics, who were not a white team. Definitely not, but it had
not 100%. But the thing was it's the face of the teams were what? Larry Bird and Kevin Magic Johnson.
Oh,
no, I'm sorry. I was saying the two teams. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. We've got Bird versus Johnson and Lakers versus Celtics. Although it was kind of mixed. I mean, we got my favorite player that nobody ever remembers is Rambis. Do you remember Rambis? Do you know who that is?
And I know that Saf does too.
Big white guy with massive glasses. It always made me laugh that like a lot of the Laker roster had glasses. So Worthy had glasses, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had glasses, and Rambis had glasses. Like, what the fuck? And I'm a huge Laker fan. I was
Like, this is
huge.
really before LASIK, so that's most of the reason why.
I mean, it's so dumb, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Bird versus Magic, basically.
Yeah.
So we get this, but it kind of turns into, why were you in jail? And Lamont says, well, I came out of the store. I was stealing a TV. I was near a donut shop because that's where all the cops go to. Two cops roll in from donut shop. They tell him to basically to let the TV go. So he lets go of the TV. He drops it on the cop's foot, and that's why he's here in the prison for assault.
Yeah, and he goes,
and Derek,
come on, you're joking, right? He goes, no, you threw it at him, didn't you? He goes, no, I told you. I turned around and I dropped it.
Yeah.
And that's showing Derek too. Is like, oh, maybe there is inherent racism in the justice system. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe there's a little bit of that there.
Maybe. Now, I find this. I actually laughed my ass off during this scene where he tells about the cops and the TV dropping. You know why? Because one of my favorite films of all time is Shawshank Redemption. Tommy in Shawshank Redemption gets caught and put into prison, not because of the burglary, but because he dropped the TV on the cop's foot. That made me laugh.
Yeah.
Because then Andy tells Tommy, well, you're not a very good thief, are you?
Yep.
It's just, I know it's dark, but it made me laugh because it's definitely got inspired by Shawshank Redemption's very, very, very small bit.
Little bit,
right?
Yeah.
If the curb stomp
made you uncomfortable,
make you uncomfortable. If you've seen Oz, this isn't a big problem for you. But if you haven't seen Oz, it will still be a big problem for you, because Derek, who expected anyone in the prison apart from this group to fuck him up, gets jumped by the Aryan Brotherhood. And they literally fuck him up. They take him in, spread him, and sexually assault him to the point where he had
6
stitches in his rectum, which is fucking awful. This is fucking awful. It's awful when it happens to men in prison. It's awful when it happens to women. Not only in prison, but anywhere. It's the humiliation of...
I don't think it's a bold take to say that sexual assault is an awful thing that should never happen to anyone. Let's just say that.
But it also serves as a, let's say, a third wake-up call or third lesson for Derek about what is really going on with the world and how it is so not like what he was taught or indoctrinated into in the cult. So he's in the
the prison infirmary.
Yeah, he's in the prison infirmary, and of course, I jumped there.
Well, Sweeney is the one who comes and visits him.
There we go. There, I wanted this.
Yeah.
Sweeney comes in. He gives them a few books, correct? And he tells them, I can help you. But
my help is not unconditional.
It's not unconditional. I have some stuff
that I need you to do. One of the things that he says to him beforehand, which is, I think, one of the most powerful lines in the entire film, is after Sweeney tells him, it's like, I was like you, I was mad at white people, I was mad at God, and then I realized something. All my anger was doing nothing for me. So what have you done that has made your life better? And that's when Derek breaks.
Yeah.
Because he realizes that, no, nothing I have done has made my life better, my family's life better, anyone I've ever known life better.
Yeah. And Avery Brooks, that's why I love this actor. He's not been in a lot of stuff, but the stuff that he has done is very, very powerful. Like I said in the beginning, for me, and I am not a DS9 kind of guy, he carried that show just as much as Patrick Stewart carried TNG in Star Trek for both these men.
Mm-hmm.
The acting, the we'll call it chewing of the scene, is Denzel like in Training Day. He is committed to this role. Although he's in a very, very small part of the movie, he carries a lot of weight and carries a lot of let's say gravitas, a lot of that into bring the story moving forward. He's the one that is talking to Danny. He's the one that is talking to Derek. He's the one that is talking to that task force, explaining, showing, being compassionate, being understanding of the situation because he was there, but from the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
correct.
Very, very important, very powerful. All right, before my voice breaks completely, we get this scene. It's really hard to capture them together, but this is Lamont and Derek saying goodbye.
Yeah, so moving to at the end, just for the last bit of Danny in prison, just a big short little synopsis there. He basically said, well, I spent the last 6 months in prison as a ghost. I thought that I was going to die every single day. And then again, that conversation between him and Lamont, where he says, Lamont, I have a feeling that without you, I wouldn't be walking out of here because I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And then he gives him that little like smirk and he goes, that's what I thought.
Yeah. And we're led to believe that the only reason why Derek really wasn't shanked was because Lamont kind of got him, understood where his place is, and made sure with the brothers, we'll call them, that this guy should not be hurt. Now, I don't know how much pull Lamont has in the prison. Nobody knows because we didn't see him interact with anyone. Basically.
Well, because you know what Lamont reminded me of, since we brought up Oz.
Yeah, sure.
Wheeler from Oz. How everybody loved Wheeler.
The guy in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
I just don't remember names. Of course.
Yeah, everybody loved him. Everybody got along with him. So if Wheeler said that this guy's okay, everybody just went, all right, we're going to...
Wheeler was basically in Oz was the guy who was the narrator. He was the guy who broke the fourth wall. That's how the show is built.
Yeah, he had the opening vignettes.
Yes, also.
Up until he died. But
yeah, but then the show was terrible after
almost that. Over, yeah.
But he was the one that was furthering the plot in every single episode. Every single episode had it went through him, basically. The whole story kind of went through him, no matter which side we were talking about. And that is sort of, you're saying that Lamont kind of serves the same purpose as everything kind of runs through him, but we don't really see it. It kind of implies.
It's just implied. That's what I've meant. Like, it's more implied that way, because if you think about him as that kind of character, he would have that kind of clout to make sure that no one got to him. Because even if he didn't have that kind of clout, then why did Derek survive at the end of it? Because why didn't the Aryans finish the job? Why didn't the black guys come after him? Why didn't the gangs come after him? Doesn't make any sense why they wouldn't have.
Yeah. So cut to Derek, it literally comes to back to Derek talking to Danny about why Sweeney was so important, why he should listen to him, why he should stay away from the cult, why he should stay away from Cameron, especially because
yeah,
because of the way cults operate. They again prey on the weak, prey on the angry,
yep,
the dejected people, and that's like it's fertile ground for these people,
correct. Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah, we're going to talk about this. The next part is we find out that Derek, what the start of Derek being a white supremacist didn't actually start at Cameron. Cameron was like
Yes.
the next step. We come to
This scene's really, really important.
yes, this
So
scene with Derek
and his father,
alive
and the
father.
And the whole thing is, at this time, Derek is actually touting about how it's so great that he has this new teacher, which is Sweeney. When he first came on, they're like, I don't know, he has 2 PhDs, and now we're reading this book, Native Son, and his dad goes, well, I've never read that, and like, oh well, it's about this African American guy, and he goes, oh. And immediately he goes into how he's very anti-affirmative action, which was really prevalent at the time. But there's a little bit of tinged racist rhetoric behind it.
Yeah, he's not using any slurs.
No.
Nothing super like he's not a white supremacist as I see it. He's not a Nazi. But he doesn't like how do I say it? He doesn't like the new stuff. I don't know how to say it. I really don't know how to. He's rejecting. He's rejecting the new and sticking to the old.
Yeah.
But it also comes with a lot of baggage in terms of I do not accept new people in my life as well. Mm-hmm. Like he's not obviously saying black people or African American. He's like, what's wrong with what we have? What's wrong with the correct books?
So well, he pushed this book up. So why can't we? You can't read the other books that were already on the list. Weren't those books good enough already?
Yeah, it's like it's a tinge of racism, but we'll call it an underlying racism. Yeah. But you can definitely feel that if Cameron was the flower, his dad was definitely the roots.
Definitely. Yeah.
The vibe, the fertilized ground where Derek can grow as a
just
real.
During the filming of the shot from the news when they did the interview with Derek right after his father died, that rhetoric came from somewhere because he hadn't talked to Cameron yet. He was still a young kid.
Yeah.
Whose father just got killed. So what he's doing, he's spewing the most hateful stuff that he knows already. And someone had given him some of these ideas to begin with.
Yeah, for sure. So we get it's like a backstory of a backstory of a backstory. So there's always it goes escalation, but backwards. We see the news report. We don't actually see Cameron talk to Derek about certain things. They just manifest itself in the grocery shop scene. We'll say that.
Just as the so in my mind, how that narrative would go, it would be basically Cameron seeing that on the news and seeing this young hurt man who is speaking so well, then reaching out to him and bringing him in, and thus the cycle starting for Derek's inevitable downfall.
So after that, we get to see this scene right there, where we see Derek kind of basically is dressed for a job.
Yeah,
But
because
we
he said he was
see,
going to try to go get his old job back, and
yeah,
you notice when he's walking down the street, he's looking over his shoulder because this is
yeah,
after he had basically told all the white supremacists to go fuck themselves,
yeah,
and
I know. He's expecting some sort of
retaliation.
retaliation, some sort
Yeah,
of something that's going to happen. Of course, Sweeney introduces him to the lieutenant or the captain or something like that, and they talk about basically that task force, right?
yeah, because he tells him, Cameron and Seth had gotten jumped the night before after the party, and he's saying,
Yeah,
"Hey, can you reach out to some of your contacts and tell them to, hey, maybe don't start a fucking race war here?"
yeah,
Because I could see like it escalating very, very, very fast, and he's like, "No, I'm completely out of that life. I like, if anything, they're going to be gunning after me."
yeah, as well. And of course, Derek takes Danny to school. Danny's
School.
right there. He sees everything. Basically, he's sitting at the diner, right?
Yeah,
And he sees all this interaction about what happened and how the cops and Sweeney kind of want to de-escalate the situation. And all Derek wants was to get his job, and of course, making sure that Danny goes to school
yeah,
and not involved in that sort of thing. Plus, he doesn't want the skinheads to jump him, basically.
yeah.
And of course, Danny
Or that, or
goes to
come after his
school.
family again. I mean, that's his main priority is his family.
Yeah. So Danny goes to school. All is well. He goes to the bathroom,
Oh boy.
and we've got this. And you know, if the curb stomp didn't kill you or wrecked your soul, and the other scenes and the grape scene didn't kill you, we got this scene where there's also, I think, when Derek is in the house before they go to the party, this guy and the guy he was talking to at the basketball court,
Yeah, they
they
do a roll
drive by
by.
his house
Yeah,
and they go like, they
yeah,
kind of mark him for death, which is something that we know as the viewers, but the family doesn't.
no, yeah,
All Danny knows is that there was some sort of an interaction, had some words, and then at the basketball court they kind of eyeballed each other, and that's about it in terms of what Danny knows. But for this guy, he was lock, stock, and ready to rock. So he shoots Danny dead, and let's just
and
say Derek pays dearly for everything that he did
yeah.
with his brother getting killed.
And his first act. What is again, Edward Norton? Why he didn't get an Oscar for this movie is a travesty. But his first line. What does he say?
What did I do?
Oh God, what have I done?
Yeah, because he knows that what he did in the course of teaming up with Cameron, killing those guys outside of his house, and basically leaving the house for Danny to fall into to Cameron's trap, basically.
Yeah,
And it basically leads to that he doesn't blame Danny for anything because he
no,
knows Danny was a pawn, like
yeah,
like he was a pawn, or maybe
yeah,
not a complete pawn, but he was used. We'll call it used.
yep. And
And
as I mentioned before, how it was basically the concept of the film is that the cycle of hatred perpetuates itself, and only hatred breeds hatred. So it went down this whole line, and at the end, someone who really Danny was innocent in all of this. He may have not been. Yeah, he was a smart ass, and really, what did he do to that kid that we're shown is he blew cigarette smoke in his face.
yeah,
That was
and
the
it
only thing
it
he
really
actually
comes from
did.
yeah, it really comes from the doctrine of Cameron saying that don't get pushed around. We are the whatever whites. We don't get pushed around by anybody. We have to stand our ground. We have to stand tall. Part of I don't know. It is part of the Aryan doctrine about the white race being superior and nobody can push us around.
Yeah.
That kind of, and for us, we'll call it for us guys, it really, and when you tell anybody, don't get pushed around, you're a good guy, you're great, you have to just stand tall, and if you stand tall, nobody can touch you. It's a male bravado things, but not really male, because it doesn't involve the female part of the we'll call it race, and it comes from instilling some sort of, I don't know how to call it, instilling some sort of it's like when you tell soldiers to do a thing because you know that when it comes to battle, if you instill them over and over and over again to do that thing, it will come automatically.
Yeah.
It comes from sort of that way, sort of a militaristic, fascistic view of how the world works. Maybe even a Nietzschean thing. I know it's a bit farther out there, but it comes from the Nietzschean thing of standing tall, standing proud, because you're standing in front of adversity. That's how you stand in front of adversity. And of course, in the Nazi doctrine, it kind of gets twisted into it's us versus them. And you have to stand tall in order to squash the bug. Whatever. Okay. Standing tall, meaning you can squash the bug. I know, like we said, it's stupid, but you have to give it light to how stupid it is and how, standing tall in terms of not standing your ground is good until you reach the real life where life is a series of compromises. As we can tell in the prison where the white power guys had to compromise with the Hispanics in order for everybody to get drugs.
Yeah.
All right. So the real world is a lot of small compromises in order for people to live with other people when they're not of your own. Mm-hmm. It's disgusting, but yes. But it is a series of compromises. When in the fascistic, dogmatic, cult-like world is literally black or white. It's either them, or it's either me or them. And the them could be anyone who is not of the cult. And this cult is Nazi, white power, whatever.
Yep.
Sorry. So. I want to show the last bit, and I know YouTube kind of hates blood, but this is Danny in Derek's arms talking to us viewers about what he has learned, and it is sad because it was because
it's a completely different person from the angry young man that we saw at the beginning of the film. Because what does he say?
Please enlighten me.
Hatred is baggage.
Hatred is baggage. Right. Hatred is baggage.
Yeah.
All right. Before we close up the podcast, we do have a second segment called
Let's Have Some Levity. Okay.
Let's have some levity in this podcast. We're going to have cinematic deathmatch. And no, we're not killing anybody. What we do in this segment is we have two movies, pit them together, and see which one is the best, which one we would like to see of the both, which one is our favorite one. Our criteria, the same as every single time, is at the end of the day, it's Friday night, Saturday night, you out with the boys, you out with the girls, you're with significant other, sit down a movie. You've got two choices. Which one would you put in the device or stream it to just have a good time, or maybe even not a good time? So let me set this up. Tick, tick, tick. There we go. And we are this first couple. Fateful Findings. I didn't see this movie.
Oh God,
Have you
if that's
seen
a
it?
movie that's so bad it's good. So if I'm gonna watch a movie on a Friday night with a couple of friends, like, hey, let's have a few beers and laugh at how terrible that movie is. Oh my God, Meth, you have to watch it. It's
Is
so
this
bad.
the Room level
It's
bad?
worse than The Room.
I'm going to give you two bad because I've seen it this week on a reaction video, which I'm seriously contemplating on releasing or not. Is this Hudson Hawk bad or The Room bad?
It's The Room bad.
Oh my God. Definitely better than Saw.
Yes.
Mystery Men or Traffic. Have you seen Mystery Men?
Yes. I didn't like it.
Okay.
My uncle and I went to go see that in '99, and I didn't like it very much.
And Traffic, which is also a lot of race relations in LA
and
in
I,
the
but
end,
that's
in
a
the
really good.
early 2000s.
Oh,
But yeah,
that's a really good movie.
Traffic is
Traffic.
really good. Moonwalker or Jumanji. Both
Now,
terrible.
if this was the Moonwalker arcade game, we'd have a conversation.
Why did you not like
Because
Moonwalker?
the Moonwalker arcade game was awesome.
Oh, yes.
The Moonwalker movie was awful.
Yeah, it was awful. It was basically, the Moonwalker was basically one gigantic video clip.
Yeah, it was like one gigantic music video.
Moonwalker, the album.
Yeah.
But still, Jumanji?
I have to go with Jumanji. I know how much you hate it, though.
Robin Williams is good. Right. Predator 2 or The Hitchhiker Guide to the Galaxy, or as I call it in my house, The Hitchhiker Guide to the Travesty.
Oh, you didn't like it?
Oh, no.
Oh.
The only good thing about The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was Sam Rockwell.
Yeah, that's the.
I didn't like Zooey Deschanel. I didn't like. Is it Omar Epps? No, not Omar Epps.
Mos Def.
Sorry, Mos Def. Yeah. Didn't like him in this role, and I didn't like. Is it Martin Freeman? The protagonist, the main guy.
I can't remember his last name, but it's Martin.
Yeah, I think it's Martin Freeman. He's the Hobbit guy.
Yeah. I'll give it to you for Predator 2 because it's still a fun movie.
I mean, Danny Glover is the best.
Yeah.
Right. Rosemary's Baby original or Twilight the original.
I'm definitely gonna go with Rosemary's Baby because I almost recommended it for our horror month. I was like,
you did, but you recommended it at never mind.
Yeah.
All right. The Patriot with Mel Gibson or Jaws.
Oh, the original Jaws.
Yes. Even though it's not one of my favorite movies. All right. Ice Age or Dr. Seuss How the Grinch Stole Christmas. One of my least favorite Jim Carrey movies. But on the other hand, 20th Century Fox presents, oh my God, I hate this fucking animated movie.
I'm gonna have to give it to Ice Age because I was working at a movie theater when How the Grinch Stole Christmas came out, and I literally punched one of the cardboard cutouts because I hated every child at that point in time. It was awful.
I hate the Grinch. I hate it so much. I would accept a woolly mammoth with Ray Romano's voice over that. Mean Girls or Untouchables?
That's actually a decent conversation here. I'm going to go with the Untouchables just because I love the gangster mythos. Is like I love all the Prohibition gangster era stuff. So
yeah,
but
me too.
But for like a movie just to sit down and watch and have a laugh, Mean Girls is actually a pretty decent film.
Yes, but it also has 3 great actresses.
Yes,
and Lindsay Lohan.
And Lindsay
and Lindsay Lohan.
and Lindsay Lohan.
I mean, all the supporting cast was way better in acting than Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go Untouchables. We're gonna go two more. Bumblebee. Haven't seen it.
Haven't seen it either.
Now this is a conversation. Original Austin Powers and Wedding Crashers.
Wedding Crashers.
Austin Powers. Let's go to the chat, ladies and gentlemen. They are running through here on my side. We've got
help me, buddy.
James saying Austin Powers. You got 2-1, baby. I know what Saf's gonna say, so come on, Saf. Come on, break the tie. Well, there's no tie.
There's no tie. Create the tie. Come on.
Create the tie.
Oh, I go with Austin Powers. We all got shit to do.
Last one. Forrest Gump or Shakespeare in Love?
Well,
I turned a new leaf on Shakespeare in Love. I didn't like it at first. It's a good movie. I'm not going to watch it a lot during my lifetime, but
it's an okay film. The only thing that really just bugs me about Forrest Gump is essentially how Jenny sexually assaulted someone with a mental disability, which I never got over.
Really? That's your main gripe with this movie?
With Forrest Gump, yeah.
Well, you got overruled, man, because it was clear Gump.
Oh no, I was gonna choose Gump anyway, but I'm just saying. I still have that gripe about that movie. Where it's like, Jenny, why did you molest me, Jenny?
Why did you have sex with me and leave, Jenny? Oh, you have a kid now, Jenny? Well, thank you for telling me.
Is it really my kid though, Jenny? Really? Because we all know where Jenny's been.
Yeah. Around? Obviously. No, we're not picking heat. Anyway, that is actually it for today. Quite a fast one for us. I've listened to. I've had to listen back to our first couple of episodes to work stuff out and see what's what. But yeah, this one was quite a fast one. Let's summarize the movie. You do it first because my voice is cracking.
Ultimately, I think this is a movie everyone should see once. Just because it was really impactful at the time, and I think the message of the film still stands and rings clear true today. A lot of the issues discussed during the film are still pervasive. They still exist. And I think that really the main lesson of the movie is how hatred itself only really breeds hatred, and there's no point in hate. You gain nothing from it.
Yeah, it's just baggage. Mm-hmm. For me, I've ranted in a lot during this podcast, and I do apologize, not to you, to the listeners, if they have any disagreements with me. I know what I've said might be considered a bit controversial, maybe not. I have no idea. It is based on how I grew up, my beliefs, and how I view things. I do try my absolute best. Of course, it is very different for me because I'm not in an environment where 20% of the population is of a different melanin than me. I hate that word melanin, but yes, it's very different for me to not have that. I'm sorry. That's where I grew up. But like I said, I consume a lot of the American culture, and I do know why and how things work. I am at a point in my life where I grew up with the notion of you have to accept the other. Even if you don't like it, you have to see people past their fucking skin color. You have to examine how they operate and what their actions are, not what they say, their actions. They can talk big and then do small. It's a small person. If they talk big and do big, if it's a good thing, you can put them in that sort of a box of, okay, I get where you're coming from, or okay, I do not disagree. Okay, I'm being vague here, I know, but you have this movie, like we said, very reminiscent Rodney King and George Floyd. It happened again, and you have to look past it. That's why I don't agree with certain aspect of what happened after, meaning riots and all that stuff. Again, I can disagree from afar because I'm not really living there. It's very, very different for me. But I see some of the things that happened after more of a dividers. And that kind of harkens my soul where when after a very, very after this thing happened, instead of turning it into a unifying thing, as in let's not see each other's colors thing, it turned into us versus them. And I do not like that. And when it's us versus them, it's always, again, black and white in terms of the colors on the scale. But like we see in the movie, it is shot in black and white. People have to realize there's not only black and white, it is mostly gray. It is mostly gray. And the black and white, it is for the people that are in the edges of society. The edges of society, the not 0.1% of society. Again, like I said, there's about 10,000 white power people around the United States, roughly, and that is a 0.1% of the population in the whole, in terms of 330 million citizens. And you have to realize that they are out there, have a big shining light, and have them talk. Have not only the white power, but whatever on the other side is. Make sure they talk, make sure they're out there, make sure they have a voice, because that's how you know where they are, what you're dealing with, and you can start talking to them to turn them the way Sweeney turned Derek. That's all I have. I can talk a little bit more, but my voice will be shot to hell.
No.
All right. Very dark movie, very scary movie. Not really, because we're walking into October, spooky October month. Spooky October month, we have for you horror movies. We have, I think it's 5 podcasts. We've got 5 Saturdays in October. Pecan pie time. Yes, James. Pecan pie time. Not really for me. I have to wait till morning. But next week, we are covering George Romero's Dawn. Is it Dawn of the Dead? Is it Dawn of the Dead? Or see, I
you got it.
You're doing this?
Yeah, you got it.
No, I want to be sure. Yes, it's Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead.
Sorry.
Yes.
It's the original Dawn of the Dead from 1968, right?
Yep.
1968, Dawn of the Dead. Please try and get it, stream it, DVD, try and watch it. I'm not going to encourage sailing the high seas, but
I believe it actually might be for free on YouTube, because there's a small little thing where he forgot to, copyright it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So we are going to watch next week is going to be Dawn of the Dead, but we're going to have a few other we'll call it important movies, not really the best horror ones, but important movies in certain junctions of time. I'm not going to reveal everything, But George Romero's Dawn of the Dead is the first one we're going to cover, culminating in the last one, which you can guess which one it is, but it's the 30th of October. But anyway, until next week, please, I'm going to flash it one more time. If you have any suggestions, if you want to contribute, if you've seen this show and you have a voice and you may want to be a guest on this show, contact me and we'll have a talk. Twitter, Meffistoe at Meffistoe, or if you're on Instagram at Meffistoe79, or if you prefer an email, Meffistoe79@gmail.com. If you really want any other thing, you can just leave a comment in this podcast or any other podcast talking. I'll get in touch with you and we can talk and do something. Also, if you are graphically inclined and you wish to contribute or maybe do some sort of a commission thing, please, all these ways of contacting me, please contact me and we can have a talk and we'll listen to you. Until next week, my good sir, have a great day. Chat, you've been wonderful tonight. You've been very, very, very calm, which I like. Yes. And not going into real deep, dark shit. You'll leave that to me and all my feelings.
Yes.
Until next week, ladies and gentlemen, happy viewing.
I know.
No, that's wrong.